So if you ever been in a roller coaster, roller coasters have nothing on our rotation. You are dropping without a rail. You're just dropping on air, and you have to stop on air. And you see the ground coming at you, and you can't do nothing about it. You just gotta look at the ground and then tell the pilot, tail is clear. And when you're about to vomit.
Speaking of vomiting, it's that time of the year where Mother Nature likes to lose its leaves. Watch me blow these leaves, but stay for this 10-year veteran story.
My name is Joe Zayas. I worked for the Army as a soldier for 10 years. Medically retired in 2021. Was offered to join the Army. I joined as a specialist due to my bachelor's degree. It was a kind of an easy transition, although the environment changed completely. So I had a culture shock. So one of the things that some Puerto Ricans, and I say some because I don't know all Puerto Ricans, but some Puerto Ricans do face with the American culture is that even though we learn English, the customs are extremely different. So when I went through AIT, I saw someone with something in their mouth, and I thought it was gum. So, but then I saw him spitting, and I asked him, "Hey, why do you spit? Is it bitter?" No, I'm supposed to spit. And what do you mean you're supposed to spit? Yeah, he looked at me like I'm some type of alien or extraterrestrial. And I mean, with all my broken English, you want to call it Spanglish, and I think it sounds better if I just use the word Spanglish. I'm trying to explain myself again, and then I guess he noticed I was being honest, so he looked at me and he said, "No, I'm dipping." So it's tobacco, nicotine. And that's the first time I saw that in someone's mouth. I never saw no one dipping because I never saw a Puerto Rican chew or dip. So that was one of the things. Another thing was I was sent right there, right when I graduated AIT in 2011, I was sent to Germany. So now I got the American culture shock, which is pretty different from the Puerto Rican salsa style, all that different style of food and different style of speaking and different environment. Puerto Rico, you're all surrounded by beaches, so it's 100 miles times 35 miles, so it's a pretty small island. So now I'm receiving the culture shock of the basic training, when you're having a campaign hat almost hitting your forehead, and they're screaming at you, and then you say, "Did I do something wrong?" And maybe I did something wrong in Puerto Rico, and now I'm paying it in the Army. But it was part of training, so that was another shock. Unfortunately, but I learned. I never crossed the line of disrespect with none of my drill sergeants. I'm proud of all of them. But it was difficult to try to speak English with them, explain myself when I had to think in Spanish while someone is yelling at you, and sometimes yelling at you words that you are not too familiarized with, especially some negative connotation words. For some Puerto Ricans they're not fluent in English or they don't know English, they are sent to a school in Texas. It's called Lackland. It's a Air Force base, and then there they go through a type of basic training. So they have their drill sergeants, but they're learning soldiering skills in English, and they have to learn their English in a set amount of time. If they don't, then they get recycled or kicked out of the Army, depending on the context or the situation.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go to the Lackland.
Gotcha.
So I learned my English in a school called Wesleyan Academy. It's still there in Puerto Rico, in a town called Guaynabo. Mm-hmm. And those terms are from the Taino natives, so we still use certain Taino native language back there. So yes, I studied English back then. I learned my English there, and then I also read in English and in Spanish. So I kept my English. The only situation is that one thing is to read English. You don't read slang, you read English, college English, if you want to put it that way. But slang, you don't. Slang is you have to throw the book away and then grab someone that knows slang to teach you. So I had to use my non-slang English in basic training and in AIT and in Germany, and then slowly learn those expressions that are particular to certain environments. And the Army has its own culture also, its own terminologies. So it was almost like learning a brand new language. Brand new culture shock, and then brand new language.
So you joined at 35.
Yes.
What did you do before, I guess, really from your whole adulthood? Like, what made you join the Army?
So I started working as a instrumentation technician, which is all about instruments and temperature, pressure, and humidity. You study all that in the pharmaceutical environment, but you could do it in several types of environment. Mine was more inclined to the pharmaceutical environment. Yes, there's some math involved, but the fun thing is that you study almost everything. You study hydraulics, you study pneumatics, electronics, electricity, and many other topics. But the thing is that it didn't click with me. So I started working, and the environment wasn't as I expected. I wasn't getting pushed to become better. So I had an offer to work in a distribution center. So it's a book, and it's more of, to be more open, is a theological book distribution center. Almost like a bookstore, but it sells in wholesale to bookstores, and then bookstores sell those books to the in detail. So back again to the work that I did. So I started working in that library, developing myself, but later on I had the chance to become the manager. And then I was also offered by that church to purchase the business. So I purchased it from them, and that was a lot of growing. And the thing is that growing led me to another decision. It was to close it because I wasn't getting enough. The reliability of it, and then the income I was getting was stuck. It was a plateau, and Puerto Rico is not cheap. Economy over there is not cheap, so that's when I decided to close it, and then I joined the military in 2011.
So when you joined, did you know exactly what you wanted to do, or how did you get your MOS?
Yes, that's a really good question. So my brother, he retired as a sergeant major in the Army. So my brother told me when I was about to join the U.S. Army, he told me, choose Black Hawk. So he was a Chinook crew chief. So he told me, choose Black Hawk and you are not going to regret it. So I did. And that's when joined. I swore. And I'm happy that I did. I don't know how much things I learned from it. I'm still growing, but it was so much that I learned. Every step that I take, every move that I make, like the group, the Police say in their song, it was kind of applied to me because I learned on every step. So when I graduated AIT, I went to Germany. So I went to basic training for Fort Jackson. And then due to my background, they put me in leadership positions in basic training. And and then after that also experience in AIT, as a matter of fact, from a 300 score, I scored a 297. So I missed it by 3 points at 36 years old. So that wasn't bad. 100% was 300 points. So I had a 297. So not bad. So went to Germany, and I still had a really pretty high score in PT. So that will earn you a lot of reputation in the Army, because now your leaders don't have to be worried about you, because he trains. He's not overweight, so we don't have to worry about him. We just gotta make sure he's performing in his MOS the way the Army wants, not the way someone wants it, the way the Army wants to. So I performed, and once again, I earned the position of becoming a crew chief that same year that I joined the Army. So for a tango to become a crew chief, you have to surpass expectations in PT, never have any difficulties with discipline, and on top of that, you have to be a good maintainer or a good mechanic, if you want to put it that way. So by November of 2011, I was notified that I was going to train as a crew chief. And for those of you that do not know what's a crew chief is someone that flies with the pilots. So the Black Hawk requires two pilots to fly it, but they have a crew chief that is familiarized with the components of the aircraft. So if there's any trouble, they can assess with them whatever the issue. And on top of that, when the aircraft is flying and the pilots are going to make a turn, the crew chief tells the pilot that the turn is clear by saying clear right, and then right is clear, whatever the expressions. So you're kind of helping the pilots on certain occasions. We're coming in towards trees, you got to clear the tail. So there are many things you got to do with the pilots. You got to know emergency procedures and all that. So that I did train. I liked it also. Didn't make it too far as the crew chief because I have a issue with my eyes, so my brain doesn't know how to merge images in both of my eyes. So I see single. So when I look at anything, I see one, right? But my brain doesn't know how to merge certain 3D effects of certain things. So they told me that I couldn't keep on training as a crew chief because of that. So I said, fine. I didn't want to fly anyway. I was afraid. One thing is to be a mechanic. Another thing is to be a flying mechanic.
Hold on. So you joined the Army, like as a 15 Tango.
Yes.
That flies.
Yes.
But you are afraid to fly.
Not afraid to fly, but afraid of the environment. That is the environment, the tactical environment. Yeah. Because it is not a Department of Police helicopter or a fire department. It's a tactical helicopter designed for war. And that word sounds ugly, war, but it's what it is. It's bigger than a usual helicopter. As a matter of fact, the Black Hawk is huge compared to helicopters used by the police department. And then when you fly, you're flying like in a limo, so you hardly feel anything. Unless they did what they did to me in training, they dropped the aircraft. It's called auto rotation. And auto rotation is when the pilots, they got to train on emergency procedures. So they let the aircraft fall almost like a rock. So if you ever been in a roller coaster, roller coasters have nothing on an auto rotation. You are dropping without a rail. You're just dropping on air and you have to stop on air. And you see the ground coming at you and you can't do nothing about it. You just got to look at the ground and then tell the pilot, tail is clear. And when you're about to vomit, like I was, you can't say that to the pilot because if you say it, you got two options. You say it through while vomiting, or you just don't say it. So I opted for not saying it, and I grabbed my barf bag because I knew it was going to happen because they did 3 rotations back to back. From 1,000 feet, they dropped it all the way to, I think it was 150 feet. And so my stomach said, no, the lunch is coming out.
To go back a little bit on, just for the people that don't know, I was a first sergeant for a Chinook company. And I remember that, just like you said, if you become a crew chief and a Chinook company, so there's a difference between a maintenance company and a flight company. And the maintenance company basically are non-flyers, same MOS, or same job, but non-flyers that just work on heavy maintenance.
Yes.
Whereas the crew chiefs are the ones that actually fly with it and do like lighter maintenance.
Yes.
But I will tell you that the people that are in the flight companies are held to a really high standard.
Yes.
And if there is an issue with the soldier, they automatically go back to Delta because the flight companies don't have the time to really deal with any kind of issues like that. So
Yes.
like if
Yes.
you are not physically fit, Delta company.
Yes.
If you're not self-sustaining, you're going back to the maintenance company.
Yes.
All these different things. So it does take a specific type of person to do it, because you have to be self-regulated, have to be on time. You're not getting babysat like some of the other MOSs.
Yes.
So
And also in the personal environment also, so in the personal context, when you're training as a crew chief, you can't have issues with domestic violence, you can't have issues with alcohol, you can't have issues with the police. That they are not going to deal with that. They just send you back to maintenance companies. And we're not using that expression as saying that maintenance companies, no, they're horrible. No. Is that you're not going to fly. You're not going to fly on the aircraft, but you have to repair. You have to repair it, and the repairs done by maintenance companies, they go in deep end compared to the ones for the flight companies. And I'm not going to enter to all those details on deep end maintenance, but it's different. The maintenance is different.
So you said you were in for 10 years.
Yes.
Was the vision the thing that got you out at the 10 years, or was there something else?
So in Germany, around, if I'm not mistaken, 2012, around 2012, 2013. No, 2013, around 2013, my body had an issue, and the doctors didn't know what was it. So I was always good at PT, but my pain, you know, when you go to the gym that you lift weights and whatever, and then you have that nice pain on you, and you, man, I did something, because if I feel pain, I did something. No pain, no gain, right? But the issue was that pain didn't go away. And I was eating correctly. I always did. My wife is pretty strict with what we eat, and it didn't go away. So I ended up going to a doctor. I said, hey, it doesn't go away. I'm always training, and I'm always having pain. And I rest Saturdays and Sundays, so I don't touch weights or nothing. And it's the same pain. It's not going away, and it's making me extremely stiff. So I went through that painfully and quietly, so my supervisors did not know. I don't like talking about whatever. Here I could give you some details, but when I was in the Army, I avoided talking about pain, because pain could weaken the soldiers that are listening to it. You don't want your soldiers to be weakened by your example. You want them to be always motivated. So in the Army, I kind of only talk about it with my doctor. But in Fort Riley, 2015, I got so good at PT that they decided to send me to Master Fitness Trainer School. So I went with pain and came back with pain. Once again, no one knew about it. So they couldn't know yet what I had. I told them, I started reading, like I told you, I love to read. I told them, I think it's fibromyalgia, because if you told me it's not arthritis, it's not nothing related with thyroid or whatever, then it looks like fibromyalgia, but I'm not a doctor. The thing was, they kind of put a note on fibromyalgia, but it wasn't until I arrived to Fort Eustis in 2018 that I had a doctor, an awesome doctor, and I'm going to mention her name because she retired, Dr. Saba, and I know many of you know her, that told me, yes, all the tests we have performed show that you have fibromyalgia. There's no way around it. I still have it, so I cannot do exercises every day. Even though I want to, I just can't, because I get too stiff, and then everyone notices it, and everyone's gonna ask, hey, well, are you okay? You're limping. I don't want that again. It's gonna stay with me. I don't know till when. That was one of the main reasons I was medically retired from the Army. So yes, it was that, and then migraines, started developing horrible migraines, and then shoulders. I got torn shoulders. And so I had accumulated several things, and once again, my supervisors never knew about it. So when I went to doctors or appointments, Sometimes they got suspicious, but that was it. I never told them. I said it's not about trust. It's just about to keep a military bearing in front of your peers and your supervisors. So I just didn't speak about it to them, only to those that could solve the issue, and they were the doctors.
So you did 10 years, and then you felt the pain prior to, but did that affect your like mentality? Because I know a lot of people, when it's almost like an abrupt MEB, then they get like, you can get depressed, you almost feel like you're not part of the team anymore. Did any of that stuff happen?
So in my case, my character changed a little bit because I started getting angrier. It's not fun to wake up in the morning and your hands, you can't even close your hands. They're just open, and you try to close them, and you gotta kind of massage them to be able to start closing them. And then your knees don't want to move correctly. So you tend to get frustrated because you tell yourself, whoa, I have trained, I'm eating correctly, or why do I have this? But in my case, I've been, like I said in the beginning, I'm a believer. I used the Bible as my foundation for my events. So whenever I have a positive or a not so positive situation, I try to do like King David. He saw God in every situation, God intervening. So I guess I don't read God's mind, but I guess the Lord wanted me to work here as a civilian, still for the Army, the U.S. Army, but not anymore as a soldier. Maybe because of my character was changing, I was getting angrier, not because of the military, because of the pain I was suffering, the intensive pain. And then now you have to deal with problems with soldiers with maybe they got caught drinking underage, or maybe they had an issue with their wives, and now you're facing their problems on top of your problems. So my character was changing a little bit. I still had soldiers that trusted me, but there were my patience wasn't the same as always. And my wife told me, you have changed too much. Something is wrong with you. Now it's getting a lot better, although still has pain. The anger has been controlled more. It's still got a little bit. I guess it's a little bit part of my character, but nothing violent. No crossing the line in that context.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I guess the next question is, because we'll kind of wrap it up here in the next question or two, but out of your 10 years, like when you think of the Army and maybe some of your experiences, is there a specific event that kind of pops up in your mind? Like good, bad, or indifferent?
Bad in a learning context. Bad as in having supervisors that did not know the issue. There were situations that I'd said no to, physical training or certain tournaments, physical tournaments, that I denied, but I never told no one about it. Air assault school and all that. And then supervisors, they tend to get frustrated with you, but they don't know what they don't know, and I wasn't going to tell them. But what I saw was that some of their reactions sometimes were not in a developing context. So there were maybe maturity, or maybe they needed more time as leaders. They sometimes took decisions that I did not agree on, right? And 99.9% of the time, I was older than my supervisors. I was practically the oldest person in the company except for the first sergeant. So the first sergeant and we were always the same age back then. Or the sergeant major. As a matter of fact, as a point, in my first promotion board from E4 to E5, the sergeant major asked me a personal question. And I don't remember the question, but I remember my answer. My answer was, Sergeant Major, I feel comfortable because I see my brother in you. And he had 4 first sergeants, and they all look at him and they smile, waiting for his answer. And he had a pen in his hand. He looks at his pen. He rolls the pen and looks at me and asks, "Is that good or bad?" And I said, "No, no, Sergeant Major. He's also a Sergeant Major. Is awesome. It's nothing negative. So I feel comfortable here. And yes, I did tore that board into pieces. So I answered all the questions and all that. So it was a pretty good setup in that moment."
That's awesome. All right, to kind of wrap it up, out of all your experience, both on the military side, life experience prior to the military, and then as a DA civilian, what advice do you give to any future generations?
Advice, so develop yourself. You all that you have because you all that you got. So you have to develop yourself. You have to read. If you don't like reading, start with small books on leadership. Later on, keep on buy those that are thicker. But leadership books will help you a lot. Management books, how to manage personnel. That way, you kind of go with the flow of the business environment. Because it's the same. Business environment, they're extremely similar.